When the Leviathan broke through Europa's ice shelf, I knew there was no going back. 20 years of secrecy, of midnight requisitions and ghost crews, all culminating in this moment. My name is Jackson Cole, former captain of Earth's disbanded Marine Corps, and today we would change the course of galactic history. The Galactic Council had dismissed Earth long ago as a backwater planet, hardly worth their attention beyond resource extraction and the occasional token diplomatic mission. They'd forced our naval disbandment 2 decades earlier under the so-called Pacification Treaty. No warships, no military-grade weaponry, no orbital defenses, just perfect compliance and servitude to the greater galactic community. What the Council didn't know was that some of us never accepted those terms. Europa Station had been officially designated as a deep ice research facility. Its true purpose was known to fewer than 300 people in the solar system. Project Leviathan, the construction of humanity's first and only supercarrier, built in absolute secrecy beneath the Jovian moon's thick ice crust. Final systems check complete, Commander, Burke reported from the tactical station, his voice steady despite the tension filling the bridge. My XO hadn't slept in 36 hours, but you'd never know it from his demeanor. Weapons hot, shields at maximum. Engineering reports Mark 7 drives are operating at 98% efficiency. I nodded, scanning the status readouts on my command console. And our special package. Skip drive is operational, Burke confirmed, though his expression tightened. Though Dr. Reeves still insists it hasn't been properly tested, it'll have to do. I stood from my chair, feeling the subtle vibration of the massive engines through the deck plating. 6 kilometers of advanced weaponry, cutting-edge technology, and the concentrated effort of Earth's finest engineers. We're out of time. 3 days ago, a Growl pirate fleet had struck the mining operations in the Kuiper Belt, destroying 2 stations and abducting hundreds of workers. When Earth petitioned the Council for protection, their response had been predictable, regrettable, but not a priority for intervention. Human lives were simply not valuable enough to warrant Council military action. That had been the final straw. The activation codes for Leviathan had been transmitted to Europa within hours. Surface breach in 60 seconds, announced Lieutenant Drake from navigation. The young officer's fingers danced across her console, plotting our emergence trajectory. Ice thickness diminishing rapidly. The bridge fell silent as the massive bow lasers cut through the final meters of Europa's icy crust. Screens showed the brilliant explosion of vapor and crystalline debris as Leviathan surged upward, breaking free of its hidden birthplace. Send the signal, I ordered. All Earth colonies and outposts. It's time they knew they weren't alone anymore. Burke nodded, executing the command. Across the solar system and beyond, on every human settlement, the same message would now be broadcasting. Earth's declaration of independence from the Galactic Council. Sir, Drake's voice was tight. Detecting 2 Growl cruisers on an intercept course. They must have been waiting for a response force. I allowed myself a thin smile. Perfect timing. Weapons Officer Kerrigan. Target their propulsion systems. Let's introduce ourselves. The Leviathan's main cannons discharged with a subsonic rumble that resonated through the ship's superstructure. On the main view screen, twin lances of energy streaked across the void, each finding its mark with devastating precision. The Growl vessels, accustomed to terrorizing unarmed merchant ships, stood no chance against a vessel of Leviathan's caliber. Their engines detonated in spectacular plumes of superheated plasma. Direct hits, Kerrigan reported, unable to keep the satisfaction from his voice. Both vessels disabled. Open a channel, I ordered. When Communications Officer Rodriguez nodded, I addressed our stunned opponents. Growl vessels, this is Commander Jackson Cole of the Earth defense vessel Leviathan. Your attacks on human settlements end today. Prepare to be boarded, and your crews detained for crimes against Earth. The response came quickly, panicked, angry chatter in their guttural language. They're requesting Council intervention. Rodriguez translated, claiming we violated the Treaty of Pacification. Let them, I replied. By the time the council responds, we'll be long gone. Burke, dispatch the boarding teams. I want those ships secured and any captives freed within the hour. Aye, Commander. As the boarding operation proceeded, I retreated to my ready room. The small chamber adjoining the bridge offered a rare moment of solitude. On my desk sat a single photograph, the old Earth Naval Academy graduation ceremony, 20 years ago. The last class before the dissolution. So many faces full of pride and purpose, most of whom had been forced to find civilian occupations after the Council's mandate. A soft chime interrupted my thoughts. Commander, Burke's voice came through the intercom. Council Patrol Group incoming. 3 Enforcer-class cruisers. They're demanding our immediate surrender. I took one last look at the photograph before returning to the bridge. Time to see if all our planning pays off. The main view screen showed the approaching Council vessels, sleek, predatory ships with the distinctive angular profile of Galactic Enforcement Division design. Their weapons would be hot, their commanders confident in their technological superiority. They're hailing us, sir, Rodriguez reported. On screen, the stern face of a council commander appeared, a Veridon, their pale blue skin and elongated cranium, marking them as one of the council's founding species. Unauthorized Earth vessel. You are in violation of Treaty Statutes 15 through 42. Power down your weapons and prepare to be boarded. Resistance will result in your immediate destruction. I stood, making sure my uniform was properly adjusted. First impressions matter, even when making history. This is Commander Jackson Cole of the Earth Defense Force. The Treaty of Pacification has been unilaterally abrogated by Earth following the Council's continued failure to protect human interests. We will not power down, and we will not surrender. The Veridon's expression shifted from arrogance to disbelief. You cannot possibly believe your single vessel can stand against the might of the Galactic Council. Watch us, I replied, signaling Rodriguez to cut the transmission. Tactical. What are our odds? Burke studied his readings. 3 Enforcers are formidable, sir. Standard armaments. But their targeting systems are top tier. They'll coordinate their attack patterns. Recommendations? Hit hard, hit fast, and don't stay in one place. Burke's eyes gleamed. Let's show them what this ship can do. I nodded. Helm. Evasive pattern Epsilon. Weapons. Target the lead vessel's command section. Let's give them something to think about. The Leviathan surged forward, its massive bulk moving with surprising agility as the helm officer executed the maneuver. The Council ships reacted predictably, spreading out to envelop us in a classic pincer movement. They're firing, Drake called out. The first salvo from the Council ship struck our shields, the energy dispersing in brilliant cascades across our defensive envelope. The bridge trembled slightly, but the systems held. Shields at 86%, reported the engineering liaison. Minimal power fluctuation. Return fire, I ordered. Leviathan's main batteries unleashed their fury, the concentrated energy beams punching through the lead Enforcer's forward shields and scoring deep gouges along its hull. Secondary explosions blossomed where our shots had penetrated vital systems. Direct hit on their command section, Burke announced. They're venting atmosphere. The other 2 are adjusting formation, trying to protect their damaged companion. Press the advantage. All batteries. Continuous fire. Don't give them time to regroup. For the next 20 minutes, we engaged in a deadly dance with the Council ships. Leviathan proved her worth with every exchange, her advanced shields absorbing punishment that would have crippled lesser vessels, her weapons delivering precision strikes against the increasingly desperate Enforcers. Sir, Drake called out, the damaged Enforcer is withdrawing. The other 2 are covering its retreat. Burke looked up from tactical. We could pursue and finish them, send a stronger message. I considered the option, but shook my head. No, we've made our point. They know now that Earth isn't defenseless anymore. That's enough for today. I turned to navigation. Set course for Xerxes Station. Maximum speed once we're clear. Xerxes, sir? Bert questioned. That's a haven for smugglers and pirates. Exactly, I replied. And right now, we need allies who operate outside council jurisdiction. John Teller is waiting for us there. At the mention of Teller's name, Burke's expression changed. John Teller had been Earth's most effective intelligence operative before the treaty forced the dissolution of our espionage networks. He'd gone underground, ostensibly retiring to a quiet life on Mars. But those of us involved in Leviathan knew better. Teller had spent the last 2 decades building a network of contacts throughout the galaxy, people who chafed under council rule or existed in its shadowy margins. Drake, how long to Xerxes? At maximum conventional drive, 48 hours, sir. I nodded. Make it so, and maintain alert status. Those enforcers will report back, and the council won't take this lightly. As the Leviathan accelerated away from Jupiter's orbit, I couldn't help but feel a surge of pride. Our first engagement had been a success. We'd rescued the captured miners, defeated the Growl Raiders, and stood our ground against council forces. But this was just the beginning. The real challenges lay ahead. The journey to Xerxes Station passed intense preparation. Every department worked round the clock, running drills, fine-tuning systems, and preparing for the inevitable council response. I spent most of those hours in strategic planning with Burke and the senior staff, reviewing intelligence reports and refining our approach. Xerxes Station hung in the void like a tarnished jewel, its irregular structure bearing the marks of countless additions and modifications over its century-long existence. Originally built as a mining outpost in the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter, it had evolved into a freewheeling port of call for those seeking to avoid council scrutiny. "We're being hailed," Rodriguez reported as we approached. "Audio only." "Put it through." "Unidentified warship. This is Xerxes Control." The voice was gruff, suspicious. "State your business, or prepare to be fired upon." "This is Commander Cole of the Earth vessel Leviathan. We're here at John Teller's invitation." A long pause followed. "Verification code?" "Europa Ascendant," I replied, using the passphrase Teller had established years earlier. Another pause. "Proceed to Docking Bay 7. Any hostile action will be met with extreme prejudice." "Acknowledged," I nodded to Drake. "Take us in, Lieutenant, slowly." As we maneuvered toward the designated bay, Burke moved to my side. "Sir, this feels like walking into a trap." "Probably because it is," I agreed. "But sometimes the only way forward is through the fire. Have a security team ready, but keep it small. We don't want to appear threatening." The massive docking bay doors parted to admit us, revealing a cavernous space large enough to accommodate Leviathan's forward section. Various smaller vessels were berthed along the perimeter, smuggling ships, modified freighters, and what appeared to be a couple of decommissioned military cutters with their identifying marks crudely removed. "Power down to standby mode," I ordered as the docking clamps engaged. "Maintain essential systems only." Burke, Drake, and I, along with a 4-person security detail, made our way to the main airlock. As the pressure equalized and the doors slid open, we were greeted by a welcoming committee of sorts. A dozen hard-faced individuals of various species, all heavily armed. At their center stood a lean, weather-beaten human with sharp eyes and a crooked smile. John Teller hadn't changed much in 20 years, save for the network of fine lines around his eyes and the silver threading through his once dark hair. "Jackson Cole," he said, extending his hand. "You magnificent bastard, you actually did it." I clasped his forearm in the old Earth Navy tradition. "With considerable help from your supply chain." Teller laughed. "Those requisition officers never did figure out where all that titanium plating was going." His expression grew serious. "We should talk privately. Your little debut has stirred up quite the hornet's nest." We followed Teller through Xerxes Station's labyrinthine corridors. The station was a hodgepodge of architectural styles, reflecting its diverse population and haphazard expansion over the decades. Beings from dozens of species moved about their business, many casting curious or hostile glances at our uniforms. "In here," Teller directed, ushering us into what appeared to be a private dining room. Once the door sealed behind us, he activated a small device on his belt. "Signal jammer," he explained. "This place has more ears than a Vendarti mind leech." Seated at the table were three individuals. A burly, scarred human with captain's insignia from what appeared to be a mercenary company. A willowy Athenian female with the distinctive facial tattoos of their warrior caste, and a heavy-set man with the bearing of someone accustomed to authority. "Allow me to introduce Captain Merrick," Teller said, indicating the scarred mercenary. "He controls most of the legitimate shipping protection in this sector." Kiravash, the Athenian, nodded coolly. "Former Council Special Forces until they purged her division for refusing to execute civilian protesters. And this," he gestured to the heavy-set man, "is Governor Ryle." The name struck me immediately. "Governor Lucas Reel, from the Proxima Centauri colony?" Reel nodded grimly. "Former governor. The council removed me when I objected to their increased resource quotas. I've been officially listed as deceased for 3 years now. The governor has been coordinating resistance cells throughout human space," Teller explained. "Until now, it's been mostly passive resistance, information gathering, and the occasional sabotage operation. Your Leviathan changes everything." I surveyed the unlikely group. "How much do they know about our operation?" "Everything I know," Teller replied. "These people have risked their lives opposing council dominance. They've earned my trust." I considered this for a moment before nodding. "Then they've earned mine as well. What's the current situation?" Merrick leaned forward. "The council's in chaos. 3 emergency sessions in the past 2 days. They never expected Earth to have military capability, let alone something that could stand toe-to-toe with Enforcer-class vessels. They've deployed 6 more patrol groups to the Sol system," Kiravash added, her melodic accent giving her words an almost musical quality, despite their grave content. "And there are rumors they're recalling the 7th Fleet from the Orion border." "That's a significant commitment of forces," Burke observed. "Nearly a quarter of their combat-ready vessels." Governor Ryle nodded. "You've frightened them, Commander. For the first time in generations, someone has successfully challenged their military supremacy." "We've done more than frighten them," Teller interjected. "We've created an opportunity. The Council maintains control through the perception of invincibility. You've cracked that facade." "What are you suggesting?" I asked, though I could already see where this was heading. "Rebellion," Ryle stated simply. "Not just human worlds, but all the subjugated species who've suffered under Council hegemony. The Athenians, the Brel Collective, the Tau Archipelago. They're all watching, waiting to see if this is just a momentary spark or the beginning of a fire." I exchanged glances with Burke. This was moving faster than we'd anticipated. Leviathan had been conceived as a defensive measure, a way to force the Council to respect Earth's sovereignty. What Ryle was suggesting was full-scale galactic war. "We don't have the resources for that kind of conflict," I said carefully. "Leviathan is powerful, but she's just one ship. For now," Merrick said with a predatory smile. "But there are others who would join your cause. Independent captains, decommissioned military vessels operating under private charters, colonial defense ships, technically prohibited by Council edicts, but maintained in secret." "How many?" Burke asked. "Enough to form the nucleus of a fleet," Teller answered. "Not enough to confront the Council Navy directly, but sufficient for hit-and-run operations, colony defense, and strategic strikes." I considered the implications. "And what would we strike? The Council spans thousands of systems." Kiravash leaned forward. Not the systems. The information network. The Council's power depends on near instantaneous communication across vast distances. They coordinate their fleets, manage their economies, and control their populations through the Nexus. Their quantum entanglement communication system. I nodded, understanding. But those relays are among the most heavily guarded installations in the galaxy. Most are, Teller agreed. But not all. We've identified several key nodes with vulnerabilities. If we could disrupt even a few, it would create blind spots in their network, hamper their coordination. And buy time for the resistance to organize, Ryle added. The conversation continued late into the night, as we debated strategies, assessed resources, and evaluated risks. It was well past midnight by station time when an urgent knock at the door interrupted our planning. Teller disabled the signal jammer, and a young human woman burst in, her face flushed with exertion. "Patrol ships," she gasped. "Council Special Forces. 6 cruisers just docked at the main terminal." "Black Squad," Kira Vash hissed, her normally composed features tightening with alarm. "What's Black Squad?" Burke demanded. "Internal security," Teller explained grimly. "The Council's elite enforcers. They don't operate openly. They're assassination teams, black ops specialists." "How did they find us so quickly?" I wondered aloud. Real's expression darkened. "They didn't need to find you. They were looking for me. I've been their priority target for years. Then we need to get you out of here. I decided. All of you. The Leviathan can provide safe transport." Teller shook his head. "Too late for that. They'll have the docks locked down. Our best chance is to split up. Use the emergency evacuation protocol Xerxes has in place for exactly this situation." "You have a rally point?" I asked. "Kuiper Station," Merrick supplied. "In the Saturnian shadow. We maintain a secure facility there." I nodded. "We'll rendezvous in 72 hours. I turned to Burke. "Get back to the ship. Prepare for emergency departure." "Sir," Burke protested, "protocol dictates I don't leave you without proper security." "This isn't a standard situation. Commander, that's an order." Burke reluctantly complied, departing with our security detail. As the door closed behind them, Teller produced a small case from beneath the table, revealing several compact weapons and communication devices. "Standard escape package," he explained, distributing the items. "Subdermal transponders, short-range stunners, and emergency medical supplies." I accepted the gear, securing the weapon in my uniform's inner pocket. "What's our route?" "Maintenance tunnels," Teller replied. "They run throughout the station. Most of the regular security forces won't follow Black Squad in there. Too dangerous." Kiravash checked her weapon with practiced efficiency. "They will have thermal scanners. We should separate to divide their resources." "Agreed," Ryle said. "I'll head for the commercial district. There's enough population density there to confuse their sensors." Merrick grunted. "I've got a crew in the lower levels. They'll create a diversion." We finalized our escape plans and prepared to disperse. Just as Teller reached for the door control, the station's public address system crackled to life. "Attention all Xerxes residents and visitors. This is a Council security announcement. The station is now under lockdown by order of the Galactic Council. All civilians are to remain in their quarters. Anyone found in the corridors without proper authorization will be detained or eliminated. This is not a drill." "Eliminated," Teller repeated with a grim smile. "At least they're being honest about their intentions." We moved swiftly through the corridors, keeping to the shadows and service passages. Teller led the way, his intimate knowledge of the station's layout proving invaluable. We'd separated from Ryle and Merrick, planning to reconnect at different evacuation points. As we rounded a corner near the station's central hub, Kiravash suddenly raised her hand in warning. We froze as a patrol of 4 Council security forces passed by the adjacent corridor, their distinctive black armor absorbing the dim emergency lighting. "Black Squad," she whispered once they had passed. "They're methodically searching each sector." We need to move faster, I urged. How much farther to the evacuation pods? 2 levels down, Teller replied. But they'll be watching those. We need another option. Kiravash's eyes narrowed in thought. The maintenance airlock in Section 12. It's used for external repairs. If we can reach it, I can override the safety protocols. And then what? I asked. Spacewalk to safety? She smiled thinly. Something like that. I have resources. We altered course, making our way through increasingly narrow and grimy maintenance passages. The distant sound of alarm klaxons and occasional bursts of weapons fire suggested the station was descending into chaos. Your friend Merrick is thorough with his diversions, I commented, as we squeezed through a partially blocked ventilation shaft. Merrick's people aren't responsible for that, Teller replied grimly. The locals are fighting back. Council forces have never been popular here. We emerged into a small chamber, dominated by a massive airlock. Emergency suits hung on racks along one wall, their aged condition suggesting infrequent use. These suits are ancient, I observed, examining the nearest one. Are they even functional? They'll hold atmosphere for 30 minutes, Kiravash replied, already activating the airlock controls. We only need 10. For what? I demanded. There's nothing out there but vacuum. She tapped a sequence into her communicator. Not quite nothing. Through the airlock's small viewport, I spotted a flicker of movement against the starfield. A small vessel was approaching, its running lights darkened, visible only by the occasional reflection of starlight off its hull. Athenian scout ship, she explained. My people maintain a presence on Xerxes. Teller was already pulling on one of the emergency suits. And you didn't mention this earlier because I answer to authorities besides your resistance, she replied coolly. This vessel's presence here is not officially sanctioned by my government. I understood the implication. Despite her exile, Kiravash maintained connections with her homeworld. The Athenians were officially neutral in council matters, but evidently they had been hedging their bets. We donned the suits as quickly as possible, checking each other's seals. The sounds of commotion were growing closer, shouting, running footsteps, the distinctive whine of energy weapons. They're coming, Teller warned, sealing his helmet. We need to move now. Kiravash finished her override sequence, and the inner airlock door slid open with a protesting groan. We crowded inside, and she activated the cycle. As the atmosphere vented, I felt the subtle vibration through my boots as someone attempted to force the inner door. Black Squad, Kiravash confirmed, checking a small display on her wrist. They've locked onto our position. The outer door finally opened, revealing the infinite blackness of space. The Athenian vessel hovered just meters away, a sleek, predatory craft barely large enough for a dozen occupants. A docking tube extended from its side, connecting with the airlock. Go, Kiravash urged. They'll breach the inner door any second. We pushed off, floating through zero gravity toward the waiting ship. I'd barely reached the halfway point when a flash of light behind me signaled the inner airlock door giving way. Turning, I saw Black Squad operatives in space-capable combat armor pouring into the chamber, weapons raised. Energy bolts streaked past us, several impacting the docking tube and sending fragments spinning into the void. Teller reached the ship first, disappearing inside. Kiravash paused at the entry, drawing a weapon from her suit and returning fire with remarkable accuracy, despite the awkward conditions. I was meters from safety when something struck my suit's maneuvering pack with tremendous force, sending me spinning away from the docking tube. Warning lights flashed inside my helmet as the suit registered damage to the oxygen recycler. Through my tumbling vision, I could see the Athenian ship receding. Then, a strong grip caught my arm, arresting my momentum. Kiravash had launched herself from the ship, using her suit's thrusters to intercept my trajectory. With powerful movements, she guided us back to the vessel as energy bolts continued to flash around us. We tumbled through the entry port, and the docking tube detached immediately. Through the closing hatch, I caught a final glimpse of the black squad operatives, their faceless helmets watching as we pulled away. Inside the ship, I removed my damaged helmet, gasping in the sudden rush of breathable air. The cabin was cramped, but efficiently designed, with acceleration couches for 8 occupants. Besides Teller, 3 Athenian crew members manned the controls, their movements quick and precise. "Everyone secure," the pilot called back. Without waiting for confirmation, she engaged the main drives. The ship surged forward, pressing us into our seats with the force of acceleration. "Council cruisers are launching interceptors," one of the crew reported. "Estimated interception in 3 minutes. "They won't catch us," the pilot replied confidently. "Engaging stealth systems and preparing for jump." I glanced at Kiravash. "Jump? This ship has FTL capability?" She nodded. "Experimental Athenian technology. Not as powerful as your Leviathan skip drive, but sufficient for short jumps." "Where are we headed?" Teller asked, strapping himself into one of the acceleration couches. "Kuiper Station, as agreed," she replied, "though we'll need to make several jumps to ensure we're not followed." As the Athenian vessel accelerated away from Xerxes, I stared out the viewport at the receding station. Weapons fire was now visible along several of its sections, suggesting the conflict had escalated beyond a simple security operation. "This is more than a manhunt," I observed. "The Council is using this as an excuse to crack down on Xerxes entirely." Teller nodded grimly. "Xerxes has long been a thorn in their side. They're making an example of it." "And how many innocent people will die in the process?" I demanded. "Precisely why we must succeed," Kiravash replied. "This is the Council's true nature. Absolute control maintained through fear and violence. Today it's Xerxes. Tomorrow, it could be Earth." The jump to Kuiper Station was tense but uneventful. The Athenian vessel's stealth technology proved effective, allowing us to slip past Council patrols without detection. We made 3 separate jumps, each time emerging in empty space to ensure we weren't being tracked before continuing our journey. Kuiper Station was significantly smaller than Xerxes, a research outpost originally built to study Saturn's rings, later abandoned and repurposed by various independent interests. Its location in the shadow of Saturn's rings provided natural concealment from casual observation. As we approached, I was relieved to see the Leviathan already docked at the station's single large berth. Burke had evidently managed a clean escape from Xerxes. "Commander," Burke greeted me as we boarded the station. "We were beginning to worry." "Status report," I requested, following him toward what appeared to be a makeshift command center. "All hands accounted for. We disengaged from Xerxes approximately 20 minutes after your departure. Council forces attempted pursuit, but we utilized the Mark 7 engines at full capacity and outran them." He hesitated. "We've received reports about Xerxes. The Council has declared martial law. They're conducting systematic searches, detaining anyone with suspected anti-Council sympathies." "Merrick? Real?" "Governor Ryle made it out on a supply freighter. He's en route. Captain Merrick." Burke's expression tightened. No confirmation yet. The command center was a converted observatory, its dome ceiling now filled with tactical displays rather than astronomical data. Lieutenant Drake and several other Leviathan officers worked alongside what appeared to be Ryle's resistance personnel. "Sir," Drake acknowledged, rising from her station. "We've intercepted Council communications. They're deploying significant forces throughout the system. 12 capital ships have entered Earth orbit." "Show me," I ordered. The main display shifted to show a tactical overview of the Sol system. Council ship positions were marked in red, forming a clear pattern of containment and control. Earth was effectively blockaded, with additional forces stationed at key transit points. "They're looking for us," Burke observed, "and making sure no one else gets any ideas about following our example." "There's more, sir," Drake continued. "We've identified a priority transmission from Council High Command to Earth's interim government. Play it! The screen shifted to show High Chancellor Monroe, Earth's appointed administrator under the Council regime. Monroe had been a controversial figure for years, a human who had risen to prominence by advocating compliance with Council demands. Citizens of Earth, Monroe began. His patrician features composed, "The recent terrorist actions undertaken by rogue military elements represent a grave threat to the peace and stability our partnership with the Galactic Council has provided. The vessel, calling itself Leviathan, was constructed illegally, using stolen resources and prohibited technology." Monroe's expression hardened. "As your appointed representative, I have assured the Council that these actions do not represent the will of Earth's people. To demonstrate our commitment to the Treaty of Pacification, I am offering a reward of 50 million Council credits for information leading to the capture of the terrorist vessel and its commander, Jackson Cole." The message continued with details of the reward and assurances of Council protection. But I had heard enough. "Turn it off." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Earth's own government had officially branded us terrorists, placing a bounty on our heads that would attract every mercenary and bounty hunter in the galaxy. "Well," Teller broke the silence, "at least we know where Monroe stands." "We've always known," I replied grimly. "He's been the Council's puppet since day one. What concerns me is how quickly they moved to containment operations. Someone gave them advance warning." "You think we have a leak?" Burke questioned. "I think the Council has been watching us more closely than we realized." I answered carefully. The truth was, I had suspected a potential information breach for some time, but had kept my concerns private. Now, with open hostilities, the stakes were too high for such caution. "Lieutenant Drake, I want a complete communications blackout. No transmissions in or out except through direct, person-to-person channels that we control." "Yes, sir." "And prepare a detailed analysis of all station personnel. Anyone who joined the project in the last 6 months gets special scrutiny." Burke raised an eyebrow but didn't question the order. He knew me well enough to recognize I wouldn't make such a request without cause. Over the next 48 hours, Kuiper Station transformed into the headquarters of our fledgling resistance. Governor Ryle arrived with 3 transport ships carrying supplies, weapons, and additional personnel. Several independent captains responded to our carefully distributed call for allies, bringing the total number of combat-capable vessels in our impromptu fleet to 7, plus the Leviathan. It was during a strategy session with this newly formed coalition that Lieutenant Drake requested my presence in the communications center. Her expression, as she led me there, suggested significant developments. "What have you found?" I asked once we were alone. "Evidence of the leak, sir," she replied, activating a secure terminal. "I've been analyzing communication patterns from the past 6 months, looking for anomalies. There's a recurring encryption signature embedded in routine status reports to Earth Central Command." "Steganography," I noted, hiding data within seemingly innocent transmissions. "Yes, sir. And I've identified the source." She hesitated. "It's from High Command, sir. Specifically, Chancellor Monroe's office. Monroe has been feeding information directly to the Council," I concluded. "Not surprising, but it confirms our worst suspicions. Can you determine what information was compromised?" "Not precisely, but the timing of the transmissions correlates with several key developments in the Leviathan project. Construction milestones, crew assignments, weapons testing. I considered the implications. They knew we were building Leviathan, but not when we planned to activate her. That's why they were caught off guard by our emergence." "There's more, sir," Drake continued. "I've intercepted a new transmission. Monroe is planning to meet with Council representatives on Kuiper Station." That brought me up short. "Here? When?" 12 hours from now. It's being arranged through back channels, completely off the official record. Why would Monroe risk coming to a station that's not under Council control?" Drake's expression was grim. The transmission indicates he's bringing technical specifications, complete schematics of Leviathan, including the skip drive design. The skip drive, our one true technological advantage over Council vessels. Developed in secret by Dr. Reeves and her team, it allowed for near instantaneous travel across vast distances without the limitations of traditional FTL methods. If the Council obtained those specifications, they could neutralize our most significant tactical advantage. Monroe's selling us out completely, I realized. Not just our location, but the technology that gives us a fighting chance. What are your orders, sir? I considered our options. The obvious move would be to evacuate Kuiper Station immediately, before Monroe arrived with his Council escorts. But that would mean losing our newly established base of operations, scattering our fledgling alliance before it had truly formed. We don't run, I decided. We set a trap. Monroe wants to hand over Leviathan secrets? Let's make sure he has an audience for his betrayal. The next 12 hours were a frenzy of preparation. I briefed the coalition leadership on the situation and my proposed counter-strategy. Ryle, Teller, and the independent captains agreed with my assessment. This was an opportunity to strike a significant blow against the Council's propaganda machine. If we can capture Monroe and expose his treachery, Ryle noted, it would undermine the Council's narrative that they're here to protect humanity's interests. More importantly, Teller added, it would show people back on Earth that their appointed leader is willing to sacrifice their future for his own gain. Kiravash, who had remained with us as an unofficial Athenian observer, offered her people's expertise in surveillance and infiltration. My crew can monitor the Council vessel's approach and provide tactical support during the operation. By the time Monroe's shuttle approached Kuiper Station, our trap was set. The station appeared to be operating normally, with no indication of our knowledge of the impending meeting. The Leviathan and other coalition vessels had moved to the far side of Saturn, hidden from direct observation. Monroe arrived with a small security detail, 4 armed guards in civilian attire, attempting to maintain the fiction that this was a routine inspection. They were met by Teller, posing as the station administrator. Chancellor Monroe, Teller greeted him with convincing deference. This is an unexpected honor. Had we known of your visit, we would have prepared a proper reception. This isn't a formal visit, Monroe replied curtly. I'm here to inspect the research facilities. Council representatives will be arriving shortly to review your work. Of course, Teller nodded. I've prepared the main conference room for your meeting. If you'll follow me. From my position in the Security Monitoring Center, I watched as Teller led Monroe and his entourage through the station. Kiravash's people had placed microscopic cameras throughout the facility, giving us complete surveillance coverage. Council vessel approaching, Drake reported. Diplomatic configuration, but sensors detect weapon signatures consistent with an Enforcer-class cruiser. Right on schedule, I noted. Are our people in position? Burke, coordinating the operation from the field, confirmed. Teams ready at all access points. Ryle's people have isolated the environmental controls for the conference section. The Council ship docked at the auxiliary port, and 6 figures emerged. 4 security officers in the distinctive armor of Council diplomatic protection, and 2 individuals in formal Council attire. One was clearly a high-ranking official, while the other appeared to be a technical specialist, carrying several secure data devices. Facial recognition identifies the official as Sector Administrator Thax, Drake reported. He oversees Council military operations in this sector. Perfect, I replied. Let them proceed to the meeting. Once everyone is assembled, execute Phase 2. The Council delegation joined Monroe in the conference room. After perfunctory greetings, Monroe wasted no time in producing a data crystal. The complete technical specifications for the Leviathan, he announced, including detailed analysis of their prototype skip drive technology. With this, your engineers can develop countermeasures and tracking systems. Administrator Thax accepted the crystal with obvious satisfaction. The Council appreciates your cooperation, Chancellor. This will significantly expedite our response to the terrorist threat. And my compensation? Monroe inquired, his voice carefully neutral. As agreed. Thax confirmed. 20% of the bounty upon Cole's capture, and continued council support for your administration. Additionally, Earth will receive preferential status once this insurrection is quelled. It was time. I activated my communicator. Execute Phase 2. Throughout the station, hidden panels slid open, revealing armed personnel who quickly secured key junctions and systems. In the conference room, environmental vents released a colorless, odorless paralytic gas specifically calibrated for human and council physiology. Within seconds, Monroe, his guards, and the council delegation were immobilized, conscious but unable to move or speak. Burke led a team into the room, securing the prisoners and retrieving the data crystal. All targets acquired, he reported. No casualties. Well done, I replied. Prepare for Phase 3. Phase 3 was the most critical element of our plan. While the prisoners were being secured, Lieutenant Drake had established a direct feed into Earth's emergency broadcast system, a holdover from pre-council days that had been maintained for civil defense warnings. I entered the conference room, now transformed into an impromptu broadcast studio. Monroe and Administrator Thax had been positioned before the camera, still affected by the paralytic, but with neural translators attached to their temples, devices that would project their thoughts as audible speech. Citizens of Earth and all free worlds, I began, looking directly into the camera. I am Commander Jackson Cole of the Earth defense vessel Leviathan. What you are about to witness is not propaganda or manipulation, but the unvarnished truth about those who claim to govern in your interest. I gestured to Monroe. Chancellor Monroe has just attempted to sell humanity's future to the Galactic Council. In exchange for personal power and wealth, he provided them with classified technology that represents Earth's best hope for true independence. The camera panned to show the data crystal and technical specifications laid out on the conference table. This transaction was to be hidden from public view, conducted in secret, while the Council publicly claims to protect human interests. I turned to Administrator Thax. With the neural translator, you will now hear Administrator Thax's unfiltered thoughts regarding the Council's true intentions toward Earth. The device activated, and Thax's thoughts emerged as synthesized speech. Primitive fools. Once we have their technology, the Leviathan will be destroyed. Earth will be made an example. Increased resource extraction quotas. Military occupation. The broadcast continued for nearly 30 minutes, exposing the full extent of the conspiracy. We transmitted not only to Earth, but to every human colony and outpost, and through underground networks to sympathetic worlds throughout Council space. As the transmission concluded, I addressed the audience directly. The Council has maintained control through deception and fear. They've portrayed themselves as benevolent guardians, while systematically exploiting those under their protection. Today, that deception ends. Today, we choose freedom. With the broadcast complete, we moved quickly to evacuate Kuiper Station. Council reinforcements would undoubtedly be dispatched once they realized what had happened. What about the prisoners? Burke asked, as we prepared for departure. Monroe comes with us. I decided. He'll stand trial for his crimes against humanity. Release the Council delegation before we leave. They'll carry the message back to their superiors. Sir, Drake called from her station. We're receiving transmissions from throughout the system. Earth colonies on Mars, Luna, and the Belt are declaring support for our cause. There are reports of uprisings on 17 outer system stations. The news sent a wave of excitement through the command center. Our gamble had paid off. The broadcast had ignited the spark of rebellion we'd hoped for. Time to add fuel to the fire, I declared. All vessels prepare for departure. Set course for the Saturn defense perimeter. The Council maintained a defensive line of monitoring stations and automated weapons platforms throughout Saturn's orbit. part of their system-wide security network. It represented a perfect target for our first coordinated military action. As our small fleet assembled, I returned to Leviathan's bridge. For the first time since our emergence from Europa, I felt genuine hope for our cause. What had begun as a desperate gamble to assert Earth's independence had evolved into something much larger, the beginning of a true revolution. "All vessels report ready, Commander," Burke announced. "Lieutenant Drake, plot an attack vector through the Council's defensive line. Target their command and control nodes first, then communications." "Aye, sir." Course plotted and distributed to the fleet. I settled into the command chair, surveying the tactical display. Our 8 vessels against the Council's defensive perimeter. The odds weren't ideal, but we had surprise and determination on our side. "All ships, this is Commander Cole. Today we strike the first coordinated blow against Council tyranny. Remember, we're not just fighting for Earth, but for all people subjugated by their rule. Execute attack pattern Alpha, weapons free." Leviathan surged forward, leading our makeshift fleet toward the Saturn defense perimeter. On the main view screen, I could see the Council installations coming into range, automated weapons platforms, sensor arrays, and a single command station, manned by Council personnel. "They've detected us," Drake reported. "Defense platforms activating." "Target the command station," I ordered. "All batteries, fire when ready." Leviathan's main weapons discharged, brilliant energy beams slicing through space toward the Council facility. The other vessels in our fleet followed suit, unleashing a coordinated barrage against the defense platforms. The Council command station's shields flared briefly before collapsing under our combined assault. Secondary explosions blossomed along its outer hull as critical systems failed. "Direct hit on their command center," Burke confirmed. "Their defensive network is losing coordination." The automated platforms continued to fire, but without central control, their effectiveness was severely diminished. Our fleet pressed the advantage, methodically destroying each element of the defensive perimeter. "Sir," Rodriguez called from communications, "we're detecting a massive energy surge from the direction of Neptune. Multiple Council vessels transitioning from FTL." The tactical display updated, showing a Council battle group emerging from faster-than-light travel near Neptune's orbit. Nearly a dozen ships, including the imposing silhouette of a Judicator-class battlecruiser, the flagship of the Council's 7th Fleet. "They've responded faster than anticipated," Burke observed, studying the readings. "That's Admiral Ranix's battle group. They must have been closer than intelligence suggested." I assessed our situation quickly. The Council force outgunned us significantly, but they were still hours away at conventional speeds. We had accomplished our immediate objective of destroying the Saturn defense perimeter, and pressing our attack against superior numbers would be foolhardy. "All vessels disengage and prepare for skip drive activation," I ordered. "We've accomplished our mission here." As our fleet regrouped, Lieutenant Drake approached my command chair. "Sir, I've been analyzing the Council formation. Their ships are arranged in a standard pursuit configuration, but there's a vulnerability in their approach vector." "Explain." She highlighted a sector on the tactical display. "The Judicator is positioned at the center of their formation, with escort vessels creating a defensive envelope. But their ventral coverage is minimal. They're not expecting an attack from below their plane of approach." I studied the display, seeing the opportunity Drake had identified. It was audacious, perhaps even reckless, but the potential strategic value was enormous. Destroying or severely damaging the 7th Fleet's flagship would be a devastating blow to Council morale and military capability. "You're suggesting we engage rather than withdraw," I noted. "A targeted strike, sir," she clarified. "We use the skip drive to position Leviathan directly beneath the Judicator, deliver a maximum power strike to their vulnerable sections, then skip out before their escorts can respond." Burke joined us, having overheard the discussion. "It's high risk, Commander. The skip drive calculations would need to be precise. One miscalculation and we could materialize inside the Judicator's shields, or too far away to be effective." Dr. Reeves has been refining the targeting algorithms, Drake countered. And we have detailed schematics of Judicator-class vessels from Governor Ryle's intelligence archives. I weighed the options carefully. Our original strategy had called for hit-and-run attacks, gradually building our forces before confronting the Council's main fleet elements. But wars weren't won solely through cautious adherence to plans. Sometimes, opportunity demanded bold action. Contact the fleet. Inform them we're executing a precision strike against the Judicator. They are to withdraw to the rendezvous coordinates, while we engage. I turned to navigation. Program the skip drive for Drake's attack vector. Engineering. I want maximum power to weapons for a single, concentrated barrage. The bridge crew moved with practiced efficiency, preparing Leviathan for the daring assault. Dr. Reeves was summoned from engineering to personally oversee the skip drive calculations. I must emphasize the experimental nature of such a precise jump, she cautioned, her fingers dancing across the navigation console as she input the complex equations. The skip drive was designed for long-range travel, not tactical battlefield repositioning. Noted, Doctor. But if we succeed, we'll have demonstrated a capability the Council doesn't believe possible. I turned to communications. Rodriguez, prepare a fleet-wide broadcast. I want every Council ship to witness what happens next. As the Leviathan broke formation with our retreating allies, I addressed the crew through the ship-wide communication system. All hands, this is Commander Cole. We are about to execute a high-risk, high-reward operation against the Council flagship. Every department has trained for this moment. Trust your training, trust your shipmates, and remember what we're fighting for. Cole out. Skip drive calculations complete, Dr. Reeves announced. Ready on your command. All weapons charged and targeting solutions locked. Weapons Officer Kerrigan reported. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the moment. Execute skip jump. There was a momentary sensation of displacement, a nauseating twist as fundamental laws of physics were briefly suspended. Then, reality reasserted itself, and the Leviathan emerged precisely where Drake had calculated, directly beneath the massive Judicator battlecruiser. Target acquired, Kerrigan called out. Firing solution optimal. All batteries, fire, I commanded. Leviathan unleashed its full arsenal against the Judicator's vulnerable underside. Energy beams, particle lances, and kinetic projectiles slammed into the battlecruiser's hull in a precisely coordinated strike. At such close range, their shields had minimal effect against our barrage. The Judicator's hull buckled under the assault, massive breaches opening along its engineering sections. Secondary explosions cascaded through its superstructure as power conduits overloaded and weapon systems detonated. Direct hits on their main reactor and propulsion systems, Burke reported, unable to keep the satisfaction from his voice. They're losing power across all decks. Broadcast confirmed. Rodriguez added, every ship in their fleet is receiving our transmission. So are most of the colonies in the outer system. On the main view screen, the Judicator drifted helplessly, its once proud silhouette now marred by venting atmosphere and flickering power systems. The Council escort vessels were already adjusting course, moving to intercept us. But their reaction had been slowed by shock and confusion. Skip drive recharged, Dr. Reeves announced. Ready for secondary jump. Get us out of here, I ordered. All hands brace for skip transition. Once again, the disorienting sensation of the skip drive enveloped us. When it cleared, the Leviathan had rejoined our fleet at the designated rendezvous coordinates near Titan. The bridge erupted in cheers and celebration. On the tactical display, the long-range sensors showed the Council battle group in disarray, their formation scattered as vessels moved to assist the crippled flagship. Damage report, I requested once the initial celebration had subsided. Minimal, sir, Burke replied. Some stress fractures in the forward hull plating from the weapons discharge, but all systems remain operational. I nodded, satisfied. And the fleet? All vessels present and accounted for. They're requesting instructions. I studied the tactical display, considering our next move. The attack on the Judicator had been more successful than I dared hope, but it would also provoke a massive council response. We needed to capitalize on our victory quickly. Set course for Mars, I decided. It's time to consolidate our forces and establish a proper command structure for this rebellion. The journey to Mars was tense but uneventful. Council forces had withdrawn to defensive positions around Earth, apparently reassessing their strategy following the Judicator's defeat. Our small fleet arrived at the Red Planet to find the colonial government had already declared its independence from Earth and, by extension, the Council. Mars had always maintained a degree of autonomy, its distance from Earth and harsh environment, breeding a population of self-reliant pioneers. They welcomed our arrival with enthusiasm, offering their facilities and resources to our cause. The Colonial Assembly Hall in Mars Prime became the site of a historic gathering. Representatives from Earth colonies throughout the system, independent captains, and even envoys from non-human worlds that had watched our actions with interest. Governor Ryle, now recognized as the legitimate voice of human independence, addressed the assembled delegates. Today, we formalize what began with Commander Cole and the Leviathan, a united front against Council tyranny. I propose the formation of the Terran Freedom Alliance, a mutual defense pact and governing council, representing all who choose to stand against the Galactic Council's oppression. The proposal was met with unanimous approval. What followed was a marathon session of planning and organization, establishing command structures, resource allocation, and strategic objectives. I found myself appointed as fleet commander, with overall responsibility for military operations. The combined fleet now numbered 23 vessels of various classes, a far cry from the Council's massive navy, but a force to be reckoned with nonetheless. 2 months after the Battle of Saturn, as it came to be known, our fledgling alliance had established a functioning government, reactivated mothballed shipyards throughout the outer system, and begun production of critical military supplies. The Council had withdrawn to a defensive perimeter beyond Neptune's orbit, gathering forces for what would undoubtedly be a massive counterattack. Standing on Leviathan's bridge, I watched as our expanded fleet conducted maneuvers near Triton. Ships of various designs and origins moved in coordinated patterns, preparing for the inevitable confrontation. Intelligence reports indicated the Council had assembled over 60 vessels for their counteroffensive, the largest concentration of military force in the Sol system in generations. "They'll be coming soon," Burke observed, joining me at the viewport. "Our long-range scouts report increased activity in their fleet." "Let them come," I replied. "We're ready." And we were. Not just our ships and weapons, but our cause. The fundamental belief that freedom was worth fighting for, worth dying for if necessary. The Council had ruled through fear and manipulation for too long. Whatever happened in the coming battle, that era was ending. As I gazed out at the assembled ships of the Terran Freedom Alliance, I felt a profound sense of purpose. The Leviathan had emerged from Europa's ice as a symbol of defiance, but it had become something far greater, the catalyst for a revolution that would reshape the galaxy. The final battle loomed before us, but for the first time in decades, humanity faced the future on its own terms, and that, more than any military victory, was what truly mattered. The Council ships were gathering on the edge of the solar system, a massive armada preparing to crush our rebellion once and for all. But they would find no easy victory here. Earth had awakened from its long slumber, and the galaxy would never be the same again.